Well, hi, good morning. This is the first time I've ever been with the group, and I'm glad to be here. I think it's a really important subject, and I think what you'll hear from me is a lot of strengthening of what Candace just said. So I'm going to talk to you just for a little bit about the Bureau of Land Management National Petroleum Reserve in Alaska Subsistence Advisory Panel. And what you see here is a picture of the meeting we had in Anaktuvuk Pass just a couple weeks ago. And this, okay, I just wanted to make sure that, big picture overview of the NPRA. The BLM Arctic Field Office manages the NPRA. You can see it up there, 23 million acres of the Western Arctic, and the BLM took over management of the NPRA, which used to be the Naval Petroleum Reserve, number 4, took over in 1976, and then started oil and gas leasing in the late 90s, and that is when the Subsistence Advisory Panel was established. And this is just an example of Barrow's subsistence use area for whale, moose, and caribou. And please stop me at any time if you have any questions or if I'm glossing over things. So, as I said, the Subsistence Advisory Panel was, at the request of the residents, was formed in 1998 as part of our original record of decision, and every record of decision for every land management plan that we've done since then has reaffirmed the Subsistence Advisory Panel. Its primary role is to make recommendations to the BLM on ways to minimize impacts to subsistence use in the NPRA. And hearkening back to what Candace said, I do believe that is true, and the SAP does make a lot of recommendations to the BLM. I really see what the minimum that we try to achieve with the SAP and other outreach is to let people know what is going to happen before it actually happens. Getting everybody's expertise and input and consultation on every event is a goal that we strive for, but I think that making sure that everybody knows what's happening is the minimum that we should all try to get. So oil and gas, so the impacts on subsistence users in the NPRA is from oil and gas activity, research, and other activities on BLM lands. I'd like to say that when the Subsistence Advisory Panel was established, it was, until 2010, only required for oil and gas companies who had permits from the BLM. And it was strictly focused on that. And then I think it's the next, well, this shows you which type of permits are issued in the NPRA: oil and gas, permits to drill, research projects, rights of way for overland travel, cleanup, some wildlife viewing, commercial floating, guided hunting, film permits. But here, this slide shows that the number of permits that the BLM has been giving out for research, as we all understand, has been increasing dramatically. And so by 2010, we'd all, all the impacts from oil and gas were known. We'd had implemented a lot of the recommendations that the Subsistence Advisory Panel had given us over the years for how to mitigate impacts from oil and gas. But everybody was complaining all the time about impacts from research. More than anything, and this will probably be no surprise to anybody, most of the impacts that people complain about are from aircraft, from helicopters and low-flying fixed-wing aircraft. It is by far and away the number one impact that people, that we hear about. It's people's number one concern. And with the amount of research increasing, it's just more frequent every year. So we expanded the purview of the Subsistence Advisory Panel to include all permits in the NPRA, all permitted activities that could impact subsistence. So that's made the meetings a lot more interesting, I think, for everybody involved. They turn out to be like a little mini North Slope science conference every time. Some of the key recommendations that the panel has made over the years. We've done studies into how fish respond to seismic data. They have established the minimum height for pipelines, non-reflective coating to not distract caribou. We have a BLM office in Barrow, the location of temporary facilities, requirements for seismic exploration. Specifically, that is, they are required to consult with allotment or cabin and camp owners who are going to be within a couple miles of any seismic exploration, notifying communities, aviation requirements, etc. So this is a lot of text, but I just wanted to give you an example of what a typical recent meeting agenda is. So we always have a BLM update. John Pierce with the USGS has been coming to every single meeting for the past couple of years to give an update on what the USGS is doing in the NPRA. ConocoPhillips is the oil and gas company that always has a permit from the BLM, so they are always present to give updates. Kalis Energy in Smith Bay, they are exploring on state leases offshore, but they have a BLM permit for onshore activities. I thought it was interesting that at the last meeting we had an IARPIC project there, UAF. Alyssa Rodriguez was there on her Arctic wildfires project. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game Division of Subsistence usually comes and gives them update on their work. We have a UAF project that's monitoring the aircraft activity in Nuiqsut subsistence use areas. That's a really popular project with residents, incredibly popular with residents, and everybody has demanded similar research in their areas.
What do they, how intensive is it to do what UAF is doing? If they set up listening devices and they're autonomous, or they have to have people there as well?
So last year was just the pilot, and they set up 3, and they had a few problems with battery life, but they are going to expand the project this year and hope to continue it for several years. So they should be autonomous, and then hopefully people or other. Actually, it's a great example of where we could use some cooperation. We're going to try and get, if BLM folks happen to be out there, they can check on the batteries, check on the data card, and hopefully these devices will be able to record sound data for, months at a time. And then eventually what they hope to do is compare that data with caribou movement and hunter success, which responds very precisely to what residents of Nuiqsut have long asked for, because they are convinced that the aircraft are scaring the caribou away, at least locally diverting their migration and affecting harvest success. So I did load some of these documents that I thought might be potentially relevant. I have a SAP fact sheet that's just a quick and dirty overview, a large spreadsheet that's all the recommendations and BLM responses from the Subsistence Advisory Panel. And then this BLM annual spreadsheet of permitted projects. I think if I have this open in my computer, so maybe if I move it over here, can you see it?
Yeah.
Do you now see that? So this, just like Candace said, this is what people want to know. They want to know who, where, when, what, how many people, how are they getting there, how many takeoffs and landings will these aircraft have, where are they getting their fuel, where are they having their field camp. So I put this together now every year, and I try to do color coordinated, so oil and gas at the top, science and research surveys, infrastructure development, restoration, cleanup, inspections, and then recreation. Of course, there's a caveat here at the end that this is only the activities that are permitted by BLM in the NPRA, and that there are numerous other activities that are not reflected here. And I'm sure, as Candace also heard, if there's one request that agencies and entities hear over and over again, is that we would like, one streamlined portal where we can go and find out exactly what is going on. We want one place where people tell us in a super easy fashion, exactly everything. And it's, a very difficult, I think NSSI has, made that one of their goals.
Right.
It's just not easy.
So do you share this with NSSI, which is the North Slope Science and
North Slope Science Initiative,
North Slope Science Initiative,
I mean, I do what I distribute it at every single Subsistence Advisory Panel. I send it, I have an email list of about 300 people, which are mostly residents of the North Slope. I email it to them. And I wanted to mention, communication, who are the communicators, what is the best way to communicate. Clearly, it's good to keep in mind that actually every single panel, every single meeting, every single workshop, every time we ask people to consult and come to a meeting, that has a social impact. We describe it now in our land management plans. It is, whatever you want to call it, information processing overload, has an actual significant social impact on people. It's very stressful, so it's an impact in and of itself. So trying to, so we tried to set up a NPRA Subsistence Advisory Panel Facebook page. People are not, they don't love it. It's not like we have thousands of followers. I have to say that last summer what I started doing in an effort to try and actually have effective communication was paying North Slope residents, who are my friends and members of this panel, to post notices on their Facebook page.
Okay.
This is what the people are using. Most people on the North Slope are friends with everybody else, or, like 1,000 or 2,000 people. This is the medium that people are using, and so asking them to go, even if we get to post a link within their, ask them to post a link in their Facebook page. So I definitely encourage other agencies and entities to do that. Just go to where the people are already, not asking them to go to extra meetings. And I definitely find that, making a really good effort to let people know what's going on just goes a long way. It does go a long way. So that spreadsheet of permitted projects is something that I've been uploading to the IARPIC site, I think to the maybe just tagged with the communities group, but I think that Jessica maybe can tag it for this group if anybody's interested. The next document that I have listed on here is BLM response to Inupiat community, the Arctic Slope resolution on aircraft disturbance, just because I think it's such a important subject. ICAS, the tribal government, umbrella tribal government for the region, they put out a resolution asking all agencies who do research or have any activities in the Arctic to work together to alleviate this impact. So BLM responded with a long letter like, here's how we understand the problem, here's what we do, here's all of our regulations, here's the letter that we send out to every permit, here's the extra stipulation that we give on every permit. For instance, kind of what Candace was referring to, if we can figure out when is the worst time to fly in a specific area, for example, we are now trying to require emergency flights only in the Nuiqsut subsistence use area during peak caribou hunting season. So we determined for now that's July 7th to August 7th. And we actually require people to avoid that area in that time.
Good to know. We need to, that kind of information is so crucial, and it needs to just get out, and be on maps and be on websites, like you said. And
right. And I think a lot of
part
it
of our
is
planning.
we like to think that if everybody involved with aviation was aware of how incredible this impact is, we have people, sobbing at pretty much every meeting about this. And I try to explain why the impact of aircraft is so stressful for people. They're trying to get away. They're leaving known areas of disturbance. And then I think, and I've flown around in aircraft on the North Slope, people in aircraft think they never see people. They're never disturbing people. But the people on the ground see and hear them from a long way off and are really devastated when their caribou hunt that they've put so much into is ruined. So what we do in the letter that we send out is we list the heavily used subsistence rivers that should absolutely be avoided if possible. If you can't avoid them, then please avoid them on weekends. Go early in the morning. Avoid them during peak hunting season. There's a lot that people can do, even if they have to do research in those areas, to try to avoid disturbing people. And I think just a lot of people aren't aware of it. So we really encourage people to try and fly around early in the season when there's less caribou hunting, early in the morning, not on weekends, easy things like that. So I think I'm going over time here, and I'm sorry about that, but the next document is just summaries of the meetings. I've tried to really flesh those out so that they're little updates on all these projects that are going on that are useful for everybody. And actually, that's a picture of somebody giving a presentation on the Nwixit soundscape research, Taylor Stinchcomb, UAF student. And here you see all the panel members. And in the upper right, you see the authorized officer. That's, not to confuse anybody, that is Stacy McIntosh. She's the manager of the BLM Arctic Field Office, so she's the authorized officer who runs these meetings and gets the recommendations. And that's it. And does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry I went over time.
That's okay. We crammed a lot into this meeting. I really appreciate you and Candace giving us excellent and fairly brief overviews. I know that I can't remember the name of the exact document, but I do want to post your sort of best practices, things you need to do document on our logistics website. So
great.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Does anybody have any questions for Stacy?
Yeah, this is Sally McFarlane. Regarding the aircraft issue, is it primarily helicopters or is it all aircraft that are the problem?
All low-flying aircraft. I think that because helicopters do tend to fly low, helicopters are, I would say it is mainly helicopters, but people are also complain a lot about any low-flying aircraft.
And what is low? What is considered low?
Well, the minimum height requirement we have is 1,500 feet, but as you know, anybody who's flown in the Arctic, if you are trying to count animals on the ground or if the ceiling is really low, obviously if there's any kind of safety concern, people end up flying lower than that a lot. But our best management practice for aircraft, that's included in that letter to ICAS, as well as the letter we send to permittees that explains the situation and lists the rivers that they could avoid.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone.